Okay, we're going to be putting the new strings on now. We'll be using Diodario strings, 9 to 42 gauge. And these are the same gauge of strings that were on the guitar before, so hopefully there'll be minimal amounts of adjustments needed once the strings are on and we've got them stretched out. When you're changing gauge of strings, higher or lower, you very likely will need to make adjustments to your truss rod and string height, that type of thing. I like to feed all 6 strings through the tone block at once, as opposed to doing them one at a time. I find it's just a little easier to work with that way. You can feed all the 6 strings through, flip the guitar over, and then start tuning up the individual strings from there. And that way you're not flipping the guitar, over and over again all the time, one string at a time. But personal preference, whatever you prefer, there's no wrong way to do it. And it's just the way I like to do it. Diodario strings come with a color-coded ball end on the string. Each string has its own color, and on the bag that the strings come in, there's a legend on the back of the bag showing you which color corresponds to which gauge of string you're putting in. So that's handy if you're new to this. It's easy to get the E and the B strings, for example, mixed up because they are so small. So again, if you're new at doing this, it's a good way to keep track of what string is going where. Okay, we're going to be restringing the guitar now. I've already strung up the low E string. I'm going to show you the process on the A string. So get your string, pull it through the tuning peg, through the hole, and pull it tight with your one hand. I'm going to use my right hand here. Okay, keep the string nice and tight with your right hand and pull approximately 2 tuner lengths of string past the tuner that you're working on. So my right hand, the thumb and forefinger, I'm holding the string and I'm going to pull it back to the tuner and put a little kink in it. And that'll help keep the string from slipping out while you're getting things ready. Grab your string winder, and you can do this by hand if you don't have a string winder. It'll just take a little longer. And start tightening the string up. Now on my right hand, you can see the tail of the string sticking out. You just want to make sure that's seated through the hole properly, and you can keep some tension. I use my left hand to just push down on the string and keep a little tension so it's nice and tight until things start to grab. As I wind the string with my right hand, you'll see that I'm holding the string taut with my left hand. And as the string winds around, you'll see the tail of the string will move underneath the string as it wraps around. Pull the string around, and then I'm going to put a little kink and bend it so it faces up towards the sky. That just keeps it out of your way, keeps it from scratching up the headstock if you've got a finished headstock. And then just keep winding the string. And as you come around, for the second wrap around the tuner, you want the string to go underneath. And I hold it with my left hand like so, just to hold everything in place, and just keep winding. So what's happening here is you've got a wrap above and a wrap below the string tail that's poking out of the tuning hole, the hole in the tuning peg. And you just keep tightening it up until you get to close to pitch. I'm just going to put it under the string tree here, keep it out of the way. Don't worry about getting it up to pitch right now. We just want to get some tension on it, get a few wraps around the tuning key, and we'll get the rest of the strings on. Down at the bridge side of the guitar, you want to make sure that the string is seated in the saddle properly as you're tightening it. Just make sure that the string isn't getting caught up on the grub screws like I'm showing here. There's a little groove in the middle of the saddle, and that's where you want the string to sit. Okay, we've got the guitar strung up now. All 6 strings are on. I just wanted to give you a closer look at the tuners here with all the strings on them. You can see the high E, B, and G strings here are they have more winds on the posts than the wound strings do. Just wanted to show you that when you're winding the unwound strings, you can pull the string 2.5 to 3 tuner lengths past the tuning peg hole, and then start your wraps around the peg. You'll get more wraps around the peg that way. And again, it adds a little tuning stability, in my opinion. Oh, you can see when you're zoomed in, there's a few more wraps around each of those unwound strings than there are around the wound strings. So just wanted to give you a zoomed in look at that. Next step, we're going to stretch the strings. What I'm going to do is hold the string at the first fret with my right hand, and I'm going to pull up on the string with my left hand. All I'm doing is stretching some of the tension out of these strings. This is normal for new strings. They're going to be needing to be stretched. And you'll notice after you stretch them, check with your tuner, everything's going to be flat. And again, that's normal. The string is stretching. So retune your guitar, do all 6 strings, and then repeat the process again. Hold down at the first fret, pull up along the length of the fretboard, pull the string, and stretch the string as you go. And repeat that 2 or 3 more times, and eventually the string will settle. And again, that's normal for new strings to do that. I wanted to make a short video on neck relief and truss rod adjustment. First off, if you're new to this, what is neck relief? Neck relief is the distance between the bottom of the string and the frets. It's a very small distance. You can hear my gauge clicking in there. In order to take that measurement, you're going to need to hold the string down at the first fret, and I suggest using a capo if you have one. If you don't, you can just use your finger, but capo is much easier. Then you want to hold the same string, the low E string in this case, at the other end of the guitar. You can hold it at around the 17th fret where the neck joins the body, or you can hold it at the last fret. I don't really think it makes that much difference where you hold it down here. But for our sake, I like to hold it here. That's kind of where I like to do it. Then you would take your gauge and slide it. And in this case, we're going to measure maybe the 7th or 8th fret. So right around here. And you would slide your gauge in between the string and the fret. And in this case, we're using a 10,000ths of an inch gauge. I'll do this at a better angle so you can see what I'm doing. But this is where you would take your measurement. And in order to increase or decrease that distance between the string and the frets, you make your adjustment up here. And I'll move the camera and show you that in a second. But when you make that adjustment, you can either add relief or take away relief in the neck. Now, if you have too much relief in the neck, you're going to have a large gap here, and you may find it harder to play chords in this area of the neck because you're having to push down the strings much harder to make your chords. If you don't have enough relief and the strings are very, very close to the frets, you're going to get buzzing, and it just won't sound very good because the strings will be rattling against the frets because the string is just too close to the frets. So in order to make this adjustment, I'm just going to swing the camera over here. Okay, I've got the camera repositioned so you can get a better look at the truss rod adjustment hole. I'm going to shine my light in there, and you can see there's your hex adjustment in there. In this case, this guitar uses a 4mm Allen key hex wrench. Now, depending on your type of a guitar, it could be a 4mm or a 5mm. If it's an American-made guitar, it could be an imperial measurement, 1/8 of an inch, something like that. Some guitars, like a Gibson, will use like almost like a socket end, something like this. You can see that. And there'd be a nut on the end of the truss rod, and you would adjust it with something like this. Usually you'll get a special wrench that'll come with your guitar to match the size you need to make that adjustment. So just don't go jamming any old wrench in there. Take a look in there, see what you're dealing with, and go from there. So in order to make a truss rod adjustment, what you want to do is take your adjustment wrench, and if you need to add relief to the neck, which is increasing the amount of distance between the string and the frets, from this angle, you're going to turn your wrench, seat it inside, right there, and you're going to turn the wrench this way to the left, so camera left. That'll add relief. Now, you don't need to do very much, maybe a eighth of a turn, quarter of a turn. Remove the wrench, recheck your measurements again, same process as earlier. Depress at the first fret and at the 17th fret, or whatever you want to use at the far end. Check your measurement again and go from there. If you need to add more, keep going to the left. If you need to decrease the amount of distance or neck relief, you're going to turn the wrench to the right. So you're going to go this way. Process is the same: quarter turn, eighth of a turn, small amounts of movement. Recheck your distance and go from there. In this case, for this guitar, kind of aiming between 10 thousandths and 12 thousandths of an inch. I've got it set at around 10 right now, and it seems to like that setting. There's no real buzzing happening. I will check everything again when I'm done, because the guitar will settle. When you make any adjustments, especially with the truss rod, I like to let it sit for at least an hour, especially if you're making a significant change to the relief. You don't want to make that adjustment and then move on with the rest of your adjustments, because you might have to go back and do it all over again. So I would suggest, if you need to make a truss rod adjustment, do it, check your measurements, let it sit for an hour or so, come back. And once you're happy, I would let it sit overnight and come back and check it the next day, because it will alter a little bit. That's about it for truss rod adjustments. We'll move on to the next step now. I was just watching the video I recorded for the truss rod adjustment, and my microphone must have died because there was no audio, and the guitar wasn't in a very good location to show you what I'm doing. So I'm just going to quickly re-record the tail end of that video just to show you. Let me make sure I'm in the frame here. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so just to recap, I've adjusted the truss rod 3 times now total. Put the capo at the first fret. I use my Music Nomad truss rod gauge feeler gauges. They recommend 6/1000 of an inch at the 12th fret. So if we hold down the string at the 12th fret, put our gauge at the 6th fret. Yeah, that's just going through there. And just feel it, or hear it and feel it scraping on the string. And then I'll check it again with the 10,000ths of an inch at the 17th, held down at the 17th fret, and checking at the 7th and 8th fret. Yeah, we could go a little bit. We could probably tighten it a little bit, but I'm gonna let it sit for probably a good hour. So I'll check it again, and then I'll let it sit overnight. I'll stretch the strings and come back to it probably tomorrow. Because this neck needed a little more adjustment than I anticipated, I want to let it settle with the new strings and everything on it, with the tension on the neck and everything. We might not need to do anything more to it, but we'll find out in an hour or so. I think that'll do it for right now. I checked it again last night. I was happy it settled a bit more. It got a little more to where I wanted it, so I don't see a need to make any more adjustments to the truss rod. So that being said, we are going to check the string height now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be using this gauge here, and I like to use the 64ths of an inch measurements here. Oh, sorry, I guess right here. And I'm going to check that at the 17th fret. What I'm aiming for is around 4/64ths, and I'm going to use that measurement across the entire neck for all 6 strings. This radius on this fretboard is fairly flat. I didn't measure it. I'm trying to think from the last time I had the guitar. It was fairly flat. I think it was 16, maybe 14. I'd have to check. Either way, there's no need to radius the string height, because on a neck that's got a smaller radius, like a 9.5 or 7.25, you've got more of a curve in the neck this way, right? So you want to have your strings follow the curvature of the neck when it's radius like that. This is a little flatter, so we can get away with just setting the height consistent across all 6 strings. And again, that's a preference. I mean, you can radius it if you want. You'll need a gauge for that. Music Nomad makes these types of gauges here for measuring fretboard radius, and you can also use it to set the radius on the strings. I'm not going to be using that in this case. And you can also get these little gauges here, and they do the same thing. And they come in different, as you can see, this is a 7 1/4 and a 9 1/2 gauge. And you just set those on top of the fretboard without the string, obviously. And then when you set the string height, you use the same thing and you just use it down here. But I'm not going to get into that for this guitar. Maybe on a different video, we'll look at those a little more in depth. But for now, we're just going to use our 64th inch. If you don't have one of these types of gauges, you can also use a ruler. This is a really precise ruler, as you can see here. There we go. The measurements go right to the end of the ruler. That's the kind of precision you need. Just as a comparison, this is just a cheap ruler. So you can see the measurements don't go all the way to the end of the ruler. Okay. Sorry, I got some crud on there, but you get the idea. You can use these things, but you're not going to get the accuracy that you're striving for. So use whatever you've got. Some guys can use an Allen wrench, like a small one. Obviously, this is not the right size, but you get the idea. Get a really, really small one, and you can measure underneath the string like that. I prefer using the string gauge ruler, these guys. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll just take our measurements down here. I'll try and get the camera in a little closer here so you can see what I'm doing. Just stop the video. Okay, so I got the camera repositioned here. It's a little easier for everyone to see. So what we're looking at is the 17th fret right here. And that's where we're going to take our string height measurement. I can already tell it's pretty high. It's probably got to come down. So we'll lay the gauge in there like this. And as you can see, it's about 7/64 by the looks of it. Hoping that comes through on the video. Yeah, there we go. Gee, it's almost 8. Yeah, that's pretty high. I'm not sure why that is like that. Sometimes when you take your strings off and you're doing work on the guitar, I'm just going to twist this over here. The saddles, the little grub screws that are holding these saddle height adjustment screws, they'll get a little wonky and they'll flop around a bit, and that might be why that's sitting so high, because I definitely did not set that high before. But again, the guitar has been sitting for a while. So one more try. I'm just going to do this first string to show you, because it's a little easier to show you the gauge against the string. So the next step will be go down to the bridge. Okay, there's a better view of that. And in order to raise or lower the string height, we're going to be adjusting these 2 screws here. This one, this one. So we want to lower the string height, so we're going to, there we go, turn these counterclockwise. So in this case, I'm going to go about a full turn, see where we're at. And I would also suggest when you make adjustments on your string height, you might want to just quickly retune, because you will be affecting the pitch of the string when you do that. You can't see it right now, but it was at E, and it is, yeah, it's about half a step flat now. So I'm just going to retune it. There we go. So we're back up to pitch. I'm going to recheck the height again. One thing you want to remember too when you're adjusting these screws, get a better view of that. there's two of those screws here, and you want to make sure they're fairly level. I'll move the camera in a little after I'm finished here to show you a better view of this. You want to make sure these are fairly straight. You don't want one side all lopsided. You want it to be as straight as you can make it. That's why you've got the two adjustments. This angle a little hard to see, but when I look at it straight on, it is nice and straight. So we're good to go there. So we're just going to jump back to the string measurement here, string height measurement. Okay. So now we are at, come down a little more. Yeah, there we go. That's a good angle. So what you want to see, like that's 5/64 now. It was a little deceiving before. I couldn't quite see it because of the light. You can just see the mark that shows 5/64 there. So you want to be able to just see that black line underneath the string. So we can go even further. So let's do that. Okay, that's pretty close. It's like 4.5/64. So we could probably drop it right to 4, but let's leave it there for now. See how it sounds, see how it plays, check for fret buzz. Because that one was so high, I'm thinking we're going to need to do the same for all of them. Just doing a quick check here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're going to need to drop them all quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to do the same thing I did on this string to the remaining 5. And I'll just show you the saddles. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see that too well. I'll get a better angle on it after. But you can see this one's dropped significantly more than the rest of these. So we'll have to do that to all of them. So yeah, the process is the same. Take your measurements, adjust with your whatever you've got, a hex wrench. I've got these little screwdriver style things. So this one here is 1.5 mil, which is just the right size for these little grub screws. Drop them all down, retune, and repeat. So I will do all the remaining 5, and then we'll come back and take another look. Okay, so I've got the camera positioned so you can see the bridge a little better, specifically the saddles here. So we've done these first 5, and as you can see, they're all fairly straight. When you're making those adjustments to raise and lower the saddle, I'm going to show you an exaggeration here. If you're dropping the saddle like this, like that screw is not doing anything. It's not touching anything, and you can see how the saddle's all lopsided. You don't want your saddle to be all lopsided and goofy like that. So neither of those screws are engaged. They're just sitting inside the saddle. You can see it's just moving around. Oh, there we go. The saddle is actually sitting on top of that screw that's holding the bridge in place, but you get the idea. You can see how lopsided it is. So I'm just going to raise it up a little bit, get it kind of eyeballed to. That's way too low. We're going to have to raise it. But I just wanted to show you, you don't want that lopsided thing. You want to try and keep it level. When you're raising and lowering the saddles, if you're lowering the saddles, you should be fine. Just remember to tune your string to pitch when you're done, especially when you're dropping it as much as we drop these first 5. When you're raising the saddle, you might want to loosen the tension off some of the strings, especially the higher strings, because you may risk breaking the string if you're too aggressive in raising the height. The wound strings are a little stronger. Obviously, these ones are a little more prone to breakage when you're doing that. So I would take a little tension off when you're off the tuners as you make those adjustments, then retune to pitch. So I will show you this final string. Got to tune that up. Okay, so that's to pitch. And to check the string height, yeah, it's got to come up a little more. So I'm going to detune the string. And then I'm going to raise that saddle. Go like maybe a full turn and do the same on the other side. Keep it nice and level. Tune the string to pitch. Check the string height one more time. Okay, we're just about there. Just a touch more. Yeah, that saddle keeps bumping up against that screw. So I guess it must have got loosened off when we had restrung it. So I'm just going to stop because this is not an accurate adjustment now anymore because the saddle is sitting on that screw again. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull the saddle back. We're going to address this when we do the intonation, but I have to do this now just to get the string, or sorry, the saddle to sit where I need it to sit on the bridge plate. So I'm going to tighten this adjustment screw at the back to pull the saddle towards my screwdriver. Okay, so that's cleared. Yeah, that's cleared that screw. Okay. Yeah, I think we were good. I think we were just about to hit it, so we might be okay on that height measurement, but let me just take another look at that. Yeah, we still got to come up a little bit. Yeah, I just wanted to get the string to pitch before I made that adjustment, but we do need to go a little higher. Oh yeah, we're right on the line there. So just a touch more. I don't even need to loosen that string off. We're going to go such a small little adjustment here. There we go. Yeah, okay, we just got to raise it just a bit more. Perfect. Okay, I'm happy with that. String up to pitch. Okay, that should do it for string height adjustment. I think next step I think we'll look at the bridge real quick here. Let me just change the camera angle. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this guitar is been hard-tailed. That's what I call it. So I've adjusted this bridge to sit on the body of the guitar. You make those adjustments with these springs back here. So I've adjusted them to the point where they're pulling enough tension on this bridge that when you play it, specifically when you're bending strings, so if I were to bend a string like this, the bridge is not going to move up or down when you're bending strings. You can rest your palm on the bridge for palm muting when you're playing without affecting the pitch of the strings because it's sitting flush against the body. Not too much because it's set up so when he puts the whammy bar in and he can push it forward, the bridge will lift, as I showed earlier in the video. And then when it comes back to resting position, it's going to rest on the body. I don't need to make any adjustments on this case because I've already done it, and now that the strings and everything are back on, it's doing exactly what it should do. If you needed to make any adjustments to this bridge via these springs on the back, a good way to test that, let me just zoom in the camera here, is you want to watch where the bridge plate meets the body, right here. So if you were to take any string and bend it just up and down, I'm just bending the D string here to show you, there's no movement happening here. If the spring tension underneath at the claw was too loose and you started bending strings, you'd see this bridge would start to lift off the body ever so slightly. So all you got to do is tighten those springs until that doesn't happen. And you want to check both sides of the bridge for doing that. So you want to check this side and then check on the other side over here. That's the simplest way to do it. I find it works really, really well. I've never had any issues with it. Most guitars that I have with this type of bridge on it, that's how I have them set up, and nice tuning stability, and works really well. So again, just to zoom you back out here. Okay. You would make those adjustments with this screw and this screw here. So to add more tension, you would tighten those screws. To relieve some of the tension, you would back some of those screws off. And that would put the tension on these springs, and it would pull this tone block this way. And to release the tension, the block would float back a little bit more to the other direction. If you wanted to float the trem, that's a kind of a different setup. We're not doing that for this guitar, so I'm not going to get into the details on how to do that. We'll do that on a different video. I just wanted to show you that. I don't need to make any adjustments, like I said, so we can move on to the next step, which I think will be intonation and setting the pickup height.